we have a starting point with the evolution of the comic book industry? I mean, how far back do you want to go? 'Cause-
Right? I mean, it's funny because I guess to go all the way back, I have a lot of people who will talk to me and be like, "Well, comics is such a young medium," and I'll tell them like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! First off, no, comics is actually the oldest medium because it predates modern writing." And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Fucking cave drawings, hieroglyphics, all that shit. Those are comics." So no. You guys are putting these stigmas upon comics that have fucking nothing to do with it. Comics is the oldest medium. So the moving pictures and words together and whatnot, or even just again, comics don't have to be pictures and words. We've seen lots of very successful and excellently done comics without words. So
Like
really, it's about sequential storytelling.
yeah, it's like a silent film.
Yeah, and so we see that in lots of different ways. So I would say that if you're talking about the evolution, certainly you can go all the way back to cave paintings. We don't have to. That's a really long journey, especially when we have less than an hour and there's only a couple of us to do. But at least recognizing that that's where it started, I think, is a good jumping off point and a good introduction to what it is we're going to be talking about.
I went to some years ago. I went to can't remember what museum it was in LA. There was the history of comics, and they had old comic strips. Like they had Little Nemo in Slumberland. I mean, they had Jack Kirby. They had like all kinds of stuff, and that's just something that just was amazing to go back and see that artwork and see the storytelling from what is Nemo? That was early 1900s.
Yeah. I have one of the guys that I like to follow. His name is Joseph Dewis, and I love his work. And he has this great horror comic. It's a one shot. It's called Bless the Children, and I think it was from like the comic was done, or sorry, it was set in like 18 something, after the gold rush and whatnot. And what was amazing about that comic is it was done in the style of comic books from that age. And so each panel was basically almost like a pasted on thing. And so they were all numbered and everything, and it was done in that style. And that was such an amazing history lesson to realize that he had gone back, he had researched what comics looked like and tried to make something that looked similar to that, to then deliver us a story like that. So if you want to go back to the evolution of comics, it's not as expensive as you would imagine, because there's a lot of us who have so much respect for the medium that we've some people have worked arduously to show that off. So I mean, there's even things like that where, like I said, it's pasted on panels.
Yeah, and there's a class that I took, which kind of went over that a little bit at Cal State Fullerton. It was comic books as literature, and we kind of went over various, mediums of the storytelling. Went over well before Action Comics, Superman, all that. So those are I never heard of that one. So that's interesting that you brought that up. So I went back to what was it called? Contract with God. Was that? Oh, wait, who did? I'm blanking. I'm not a writer.
I would say that a lot of times when people are talking about the evolution of comics, they'll go back to an Action Comics and be like, oh yeah, when superheroes came up, that really, and it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
You're missing so much. You're missing the westerns. You're missing the pulps. You're missing a lot of that stuff that is so huge and such a big part of that evolution.
Yeah, I listened to the audiobook, Stanley's audiobook. I don't know, like I think he was narrating it. I forgot what it was called. But like superheroes didn't start at all. It was way back. So people need to understand that superheroes aren't comic books, and they're not the reason why they started.
Yeah. And even if you like I said, it's not so expensive to go back and learn more. You can even one of the ones that I enjoyed recently was Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips, their Pulp, which was such a great book. And it had to do with, it was actually a combination crime comic and Western. And so it was kind of showing that rise and fall, so to speak, of the Western comics and how that was happening and sort of shone a light on that in the late 30s. So that was a really interesting take. So I mean, like I said, even in modern comics, you can find a lot of people who are excited about those time periods and comics from those times, and so they give a nod to them, and you get to see that sort of stuff come together.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, no, it's a great book, and I mean, honestly, Brubaker and Phillips are one of the most. Those guys are just absolutely a phenomenal team, and you should be reading their books anyways, because they really just do amazing work. So I highly recommend Pulp, but if that's not your sort of thing, no problem. Check out any of their other stuff. They do absolutely just fabulous crime work. And again, crime is a much older genre in the comic field, and just has such a steeped history because of the old, like Pulp Fiction. That's where the title comes from, is from those 30s and 40s and even earlier comic books.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
trying to get Travis in, but he's having an issue, and then I'm trying to get Austin, but he hasn't responded. So
You have to kill him.
Hey Gavin, I think you and I are just gonna have to fucking tap dance over here, man, and just keep everybody, or just spout random fucking things that about the evolution of comics.
yeah. Yep.
My wife, who popped up earlier, named Raquel. That's the one that said she was gonna follow your previous guest. She's working on a paper which has to do with comic conventions and how things are changing and things are going to virtual conventions now. And she's going to mention SeerNova. She's going to mention,
Yay.
Oh, cool.
because there's a lot of things are going virtual because of the coronavirus.
I guess we can talk about that. I guess that's evolution in a way.
Hey, but it very much is. We've seen a lot of these virtual conventions show up, and because there's a need for it, but also I think that more and more people are realizing that the way our world was pre-corona, it's not something we're simply going to go back to. It's not about getting back to normal. It's about discovering the new normal. We're evolving. So we need to be ready for if this sort of shit happens again, or how to make sure that we keep ourselves safe in case of this sort of stuff. So I believe, in all honesty, the real evolution, it's all about the scientific theorem, where you have theory, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. And so really it's like we had regular cons and then we went to virtual cons. And really what it's about that mashup where you're going to find when we are finally able to get back to shows that the smart conventions are going to find a way to do both, to offer people a way to be there without being there. Like, oh, you can't afford the thousands of dollars that it might take to get to that show. No problem. We have a way to connect you. And that's only going to get better as we see the monetization of that and people trying to find a way to make that affordable and interesting and exciting.
I was going to say, like, business conventions already do something similar where they record the whole thing, and after the convention's over, they sell the recording in a smaller price package. But then the other one was, I don't remember what YouTuber I followed that did this, but they actually went to a convention with a 360 camera and just walked around the convention, and then they live streamed that 360 ability where you could be in Facebook and like move the camera around as if you're there as that person, that you can pivot what you look at, and like that kind of stuff will, like, think about it, like Google Maps style. If you could walk around a convention without having to be there, there's plenty of people like the San Diego Comic-Con. If you want to get a ticket there, you got to know somebody now. Like it's so impossible to get a ticket. So wouldn't it be nice if more people could experience this incredible event?
It's the live aspect that's huge. Can you imagine, like, even like being able to do something like, say, something like this. So somebody has a webcam on them, like maybe in their lapel or whatever, in their shirt pocket. They've got their phone live streaming at all times. And so then you go, okay, cool. I'm going to pay you $1 to be able to be a part of your stream and watch, and then I might be able to do things like offer you a couple extra bucks to go and speak to this person or that person or whatever. Like, there's a lot of really cool ideas that could be done, and as the person, if you think about it, like, I go there and I'm like, hey man, I'm live streaming. I was asked to go check out your booth. They want to ask you these questions. They want to talk about these things. And then that person, you being behind the booth can be something like, oh, cool. Well, yeah, certainly. Like, I have a website, but I also have a virtual booth on the convention's website, and you can go check that out. And we have these deals going through there right now, and you can pick up these books and we'll take care of you, whatever. And so there is that evolution. Now, can you do that right now? No, but it's a pretty fucking cool idea. And
you could probably do like a Twitch stream where you've got your phone out listening to your chat, and if someone donates $1, they can say left or right. You know what I mean? Like, go to this alleyway, go to this panel, go to, like, it's kind of like the, because I've seen Twitch streamers that do the choose your own adventure game style, where like basically whoever's like donating or whoever subscribed can like tell you like, hey, let's vote. Does he, kill the monster with a sword, or does he have to go in barehanded? You know what I mean?
and that streamer, by the end of it, they have shown off all of these cool different people, and they've almost certainly paid for their entire weekend. You know what I mean? So there's the virtual autographs thing I find to be some massive bullshit. There's got to be some way around that, because they're not worth anything.
They're charging for the virtual snapshots. So you and I, Chuck, can get a snapshot together if you pay me, and then you can't share it on social media because it's copywritten, and that's actually something I've seen on websites. But you have it.
And then what? Right? Like,
I don't like that. No.
Yeah.
I just saw. Yeah, my friend showed me the other yesterday. She's like, "Oh, this is what the Macy's Thanksgiving parade looked like," and I was like, "I didn't even know it was happening." And she's like, "Oh, it was all AR," and she showed me. I was like, "That looks terrible."
Well, so that's the thing about evolution.
Yep.
A good evolution requires shitty ideas, because fuck ups and mistakes and shitty ideas bring us to the good ideas. And so, things like virtual photos and virtual, that's like, there's these guys, and I've seen like some B, well, not even B, like C and lower list actors. They're doing these conventions, like the guy who played one of the main demons on Supernatural, and you're like, okay, and like you can have a sit down chat with him for $250, and I'm like, no, it's not even that much when I'm at a show. And you're going to charge me? Are you fucking kidding me right now? Bad idea. Now, the amount of money is a bad idea. But if you can make that more affordable and you can guarantee that a certain number of people, why not have, a 15-minute room where, a certain number of people can buy a room and sit down and chat with that person for an amount of time. And then, that means that everybody, if let's say like we won't do the room until it's filled up. We allow for 9 people overall because that's what StreamYard does, or Zoom, or whatever the fuck. So, and then when you do that, then we know that the room's filled up. You have this amount of time, and so each one of you is paying this much, so we know exactly how much we're going to make for that period of time. And then it's a little more affordable. $250 for a minute of Zoom time? Fuck off.
Yeah, I had 1 or 2 people that were like, oh, do I have to pay to like be part of this event? I was like, what? Didn't know that was an option. Can I charge you right now? And they're like, oh, no.
You could. It's a bad call because we're not giving them enough to charge for. Yeah. But, the way you're making your money, and the way hopefully the rest of us are making our money, is that people are excited by what we do. They go to our websites, they check out our stuff, they become followers, so that at one point they might order a book, jump on a Kickstarter, whatever. Yeah, buy a video game.
Got like a bunch of new like subscribers on our YouTube, and that was just cool to see. What?
This weekend, you mean?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, we got like 17 new people to subscribe, which that's insane.
I found an influx of new followers on Facebook and whatnot, fans who ended up actually, it was funny. At one point I was like searching through as we're chatting, somebody was on a long-winded talk, and I'm like, cool, and I'm like, oh, I have this new friend. So I went to look, and I was like, why do I know that name? And then I looked, and their name appeared on the bottom, and they were asking a question. I'm like, that's fucking cool. Yeah, you're added. Like, I don't even need to see any of your other stuff. You're in. So,
nice.
Yeah. But certainly, even in modern comics, there's a massive evolution when we're, of course, superheroes have dominated in a lot of ways. But if you were asking me, I would tell you that in a lot of ways, the superheroes are starting to possibly, kind of crest, at least in comics, starting to, sort of crest, and new things are showing up and getting people excited. The movies are certainly giving them new life.
Yeah.
But that will only go for so long.
Yeah, and then I gotta make the movies for my comics because I don't want superheroes to just go away. But horror is actually coming back. Somebody else mentioned that. Richard Jones III. Yeah, he mentioned that earlier. That he's like, yeah, actually, horror is like kind of making a comeback in comics. Which, when I first started indie comics and all that, didn't know that was even a thing.
Horror comics are making a bit. You're seeing a lot of you're seeing that come in a lot more. That's absolutely true.
Honestly, it could even be because of simple stuff like the fact that most people didn't realize that The Walking Dead was a comic book. You know what I mean? Like once something like that gets out, like that world starts opening up for people too. Like, and I know that's not like the everyone's favorite thing, but like just the fact that like Greg loves comic books and didn't know that horror comics were a thing, right? He also loves horror. So just finding out that there's this whole world about it, I think that something like The Walking Dead is a good, something that broke people into that world, knowing that there's more out there.
That's certain. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, that's your echo again.
Oh,
it's like that, just like yesterday.
I'm just not used to being able to hear myself.
I'm so sorry that we don't have enough guests in here.
Well, if you could fix that. No, I'm just fucking with you. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I would necessarily buy that because again, like the show's been out for like 8 years or something. So, I don't know if the more recent influx is that. I would say I would probably point to the more recent influx of really solid horror movies and TV shows that has actually breathed life into the horror genre, and so now people are like, ooh, yeah, like can we do that with comics? It's indie comics. You can do whatever the fuck you want. So we're seeing a lot more of that, I think, because of that recent, again, it's the same. It's the thing with trends, right? Like we start to see a trend happening, and a bunch of people jump on it. So I would say, yeah, you're definitely going to see a lot more horror comics for the next little while. But if you're jumping on that trend now, you're already a little late. You might want to look and see what other things are coming over the horizon.
Yeah, recently in the last couple of years, Joe Hill, who, if you don't know, is Stephen King's son. He's been doing some horror comics, that I've kind of been enjoying. He wrote the novel Nosferatu. He wrote a comic book that goes along with it. It's a prequel, and then he's doing the Basket Full of Heads comic book. And that's been out. Like you said, it's not a new thing. It's been established. Right now, the horror comics have been recent. So I think you're kind of right. Is you want to look ahead and see what's coming down the line. Because if you were to just do a horror comic, but there's nothing wrong with that either. But don't expect, I think, to feel like you're ahead of it or riding the wave.
Yeah. We just did a horror anthology just because like Matt had the idea and we're like, oh, we're gonna like make that an annual thing now, so that's cool. So
well, and I'm surprised that you mentioned Joe Hill and Lock and Key didn't come up because
I was literally about to mention that. That's a really good show. And then after I was watching the show, I was like, wait, that's a graphic novel? That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then when I found out he was Stephen King's son, I was like, that's even more awesome. I
have the entire series. I have the entire series, and it's in 6 volumes. And I don't know how long they're going to last the TV show, if they're going to keep it that long. But that's another great Joe Hill, one that should have been the first one out of my mouth.
Yeah, right. So it's funny that you should mention that. I'm actually part of a project. There is a cult horror creator. He's created such things as Night of the Demons and Witchboard. His name is Kevin Tenney. And we're currently working on taking one of his movie scripts and making it into a graphic novel with the likes of Thomas Tenney, who is known for Image Comics, Marvel, DC. He's done covers for AC/DC and whatnot, and we're working on that. And I gotta tell you, not necessarily a horror fan, but I read that script and I was like, holy fuck, this is so fucking good. And it's called Tomb of Terrors, and it's just so fucking amazing. So yeah, man, that stuff is happening. I'm literally working on one of those things right now, and I can tell you that more and more, even like you're seeing guys like if we look at the evolution of mediums like entertainment mediums as a whole, you look at things like comics have been relegated to a certain way, and we look down on them in a certain way, just like TV was looked down by movies and whatnot. And so what happened was movies looked down on TV, and then all of a sudden, with the rise of things like HBO and then eventually streaming, more and more big screen actors started to make the jump to TV, realizing that there was actually a lot of really interesting stuff going on there. and you were able to tell a lot more stories there. And so now we're seeing that with comics, where you've got guys like Keanu Reeves jumping into a comic series. Is that yeah.
Naoki.
Oh,
And yeah, totally. And so more and more you're having these people jump in, and so I foresee personally, when you've got a guy like Keanu Reeves there, that's adding some serious A-list cred. And so I would say in a lot of ways that's only the beginning of that trend. We're going to see a lot more A-listers and a lot more big names hitting comics now, because he's paving a way, and he's certainly at the forefront of what I see is a new trend to come.
Yeah, we got Ryan Gosling in our next comic, so it's fine.
Just throwing him off. Right?
Yeah. He's there.
starting
Well,
to
every Canadian, every comic needs a little bit of Canadian love, so that was a good call.
I didn't know he was Canadian.
Oh
so
fuck yeah, he is.
That's cool. I didn't know that. I know a lot of actors that are, like Jim Carrey and
Ryan Reynolds.
Yep. Like we could just name Canadian actors right now.
We could. Fuck the panel.
Evolution of Canadian actors.
Yeah.
That's right.
Maple syrup and acting.
And back bacon. Let's do this, folks.
But yeah, horror has been like kind of getting up there again, and superheroes, like, because it's kind of hard. We still fund it on Kickstarter, but it was like, people say that Indiegogo is a little more for superheroes, for like indie comics at least. Some people have said that to me. Aaron Dowan has said that. So,
Has said what?
that indie, like, superheroes and Indiegogo would probably be a little better. Like, might do a little better. Besides, like, the audience is more on Kickstarter. Like,
Yeah.
in total.
It's funny when you look at superheroes. What I've noticed with superheroes is, obviously the top tier boys have superheroes dominated. Marvel and DC, that's their shit. That's their bread and butter. And then along the, sort of lowest tiers, and not to, because certainly I'm swimming down there with a lot of the rest of them too. But along those lowest tiers, there's a lot of that too. But in that middle realm, where you're talking about the images, the IDWs, Boom, all that kind of stuff, you see a lot less of that. And a lot of them will even say, yeah, we're not really so interested in the superheroes. And that's where you're going to see a lot of the rest of those stuff. So as more attention is drawn to those middle tiers and to those middle companies, we're going to see a lot less of those. And so what are the trends in those companies? What are they looking at? What are they interested in? And we're seeing a lot of, like, the fantasy comics, the sci-fi comics. We're seeing a lot of big properties make their way into things like Alien and Predator, which now is back at, I know Alien is, I believe, back at Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
And that they're hoping to do something with that. So we're seeing a lot of those movie properties being picked up. I believe, I think it was IDW that had a lot of those movie and TV properties and stuff. So those are big. We're also seeing a lot of the open source material being used. The public domain characters are kind of making a comeback, so to speak. The problem with the public domain characters, of course, is that everyone gets to use them. So when you use them, you really have to have your own take on them. And I would say someone who's doing a really good job of that is actually Big Dog Inc., where they've got, they have a lot of the princesses, and they've got, they're using Oz and all that kind of stuff. And I believe the Oz one is actually set in the Wild West. So they're taking those things, giving them their own very distinct spin, so that when you see their properties, it's a totally different thing. Same with Xenoscope. Like, holy shit, are they all over that stuff?